everyone, it's Jack from Cultaholic.com, and hark, what's that I hear? Oh, it's revolution coming over the horizon. Lock up the doors of the castle, keep the king safe, for the revolution is nigh. How you doing anyway? Good Thursday, everyone? That's right, it's time for the go-home AEW Dynamite show before Revolution, this Saturday's pay-per-view. And it's going to be, to be honest, right, this past couple of weeks have been excellent for Dynamite. And it looks as though Revolution is going to be a really good show. It shows that once you build to a show really well, it can make just about every match on the card mean something in a different way. But this is the crucial week. Could AEW send us home with a good show? Let's find out, because it's time for AEW Dynamite Graded. So we kick things off with a casual 30-minute Iron Man match between two of the best wrestlers in the entire world today, Kenny Omega versus PAC. Yeah, that's probably going to be good, isn't it? And for the first 15 minutes, the first half of the match, they go out and just have a brilliant match. They just throw everything at each other at quite a high pace as well, given the fact that it's going to go on guaranteed for half an hour. They're throwing everything at each other, big moves, signature moves, escaping each other's finishes and that sort of thing, near falls, V-triggers, lots of V-triggers from Kenny Omega at certain points of this match as well. But despite the high pace and despite all of the big moves, it feels rooted in reality still. It still feels as though these two really do hate each other. Around the 50-minute mark of this match, Kenny Omega really starts to take control. He gets a near fall off a Tiger Driver. He gets a near fall off a drop-down catch German suplex thing. He's hitting more V-triggers left, right and centre. You know when Kenny Omega really starts to feel it in a match, you can tell it's going to be special. But PAC says balls to that. I'm not going to stand here and let this absolute wrestling machine just steamroll all over me. I'm going to roll out the ring, get a chair and just smack him in the head with it a couple of times. And that's exactly what he does. I should point out, it's not a big unprotected chair shot with the flat surface of the chair. It's more of a disguised edge of the chair into the back of the head. One they can, I guess, more safely work. But of course, that leads to a DQ and it's 1-0 to Kenny Omega, and on commentary, Tony Schiavone points out that this is the first DQ in Dynamite history, which is half very impressive and half just blatant disrespect shown towards WWE. There's a 30-second delay and then the match begins again, and immediately PAC is up top. He hits the Black Arrow and the score is tied at 1-1. PAC spends the next few moments of this match absolutely dominating because Kenny has been severely weakened by those chair shots and the Black Arrow. And then at one point, PAC hits an unbelievable Falcon Arrow from the apron to the floor. Omega gets back up on the apron, so PAC hits the ropes and runs and drop kicks him off the apron into the referee. Oh no, shenanigans are afoot. With no referee in sight, PAC fetches a table from under the ring, lays Omega on it, heads right up to the top rope and hits an insane shooting star press to the outside through the table. It looks incredibly nasty and incredibly cool as well. Both men are laid out on the outside, the referee has recovered and begins his 10 count. PAC makes it back into the ring, and then on the stroke of 10, Kenny Omega makes it back into the ring as well, with quite a considerable helping hand from the Young Bucks. And as a boy from the northeast of England, I can't help but think the PAC is getting screwed by these damn Yanks. How dare you, Young Bucks? I hate your guts, mate. Sorry, just turned into Ross there, not quite certain what that was all about. Next up, PAC goes to the Black Arrow and gets nothing but knees from Kenny Omega. Omega again fights his way back into control of the match after those knees have turned the tide. He goes for the one-winged angel, but PAC reverses it into a gnarly reverse Rana from the top of his shoulders, and Kenny's head just goes sludge into the canvas. Sludge is the word I've decided to use there. We're nearing the end of the match now, so PAC locks in the Brutalizer, his submission that has already beaten Kenny Omega in the past. Omega fights and fights and finally makes the ropes, but with about a minute left, PAC just thinks, well, I'm just going to put the submission on again, and that's exactly what he does, and fair play to him, good tactics there. They fight back and forth for the final minute of the match. PAC has the submission locked in, Kenny's trying to alter his position, roll PAC onto his shoulders for a near fall, trying to escape, trying to pry PAC's hands open. PAC is trying to stop Kenny from doing that. It's all very intricate and very good, and it feels very intense and real, but the long and short of it is that Kenny hangs on and the match ends 1-1. PAC is livid and just takes out the referee, that poor ref, and then it's announced by Justin Roberts that this match will go to sudden death overtime. Here comes Aubrey Edwards into the ring, she rings the bell and sudden death is overway and PAC's not ready for it. Omega, V-trigger immediately. I think he might hit 2 or 3, he loves a V-trigger. Kamigoye, Kota Ibushi's finisher. 1, 2, PAC kicks out. One-winged angel, PAC does not kick out. and Kenny Omega wins. 2 falls to 1. What have I got to say about this? PAC was screwed. PAC was absolutely screwed. Kenny Omega was helped back into the ring by the Young Bucks. PAC has been training for months and months for this rematch. He was training under the shadow of the Time Bridge down by the quayside, mere minutes from this office. No, it was a really good match. It was a really good match. It was really well paced, excellently done, really well worked by both men, and one of the best matches in Dynamite history. So it gets an A+. But PAC was screwed. Up to the top of the ramp now, where Tony Schiavone is waiting to interview PAC and says, "PAC, you've really wanted this match and now you've lost, mate." And PAC's obviously livid. Why would you ask that, Tony? Try to humiliate the man like that. And then who should walk out? Who should rub it in more? Who should add insult to this injury? Then Orange Cassidy. He walks out and gets in PAC's face and stands there with his hands in his pockets and his chin in the air like that. So obviously PAC just takes it clean off. I don't blame him. I would have been absolutely livid. That was a nice segment, to be fair, with Orange Cassidy. And later on in the night, we'd find out that on Saturday, we're going to see PAC versus Orange Cassidy, which I could not be more hyped for. Yes, it's not gonna, it's not a highly intense feud like Jericho versus Moxley or Cody versus MJF, but you need a bit of everything on a pay-per-view, and variety is always the spice of life, especially when it comes to these big wrestling shows, and I think it could be a very good highlight of the night. Next up, 6-man tag team action as the Inner Circle, represented by Santana, Ortiz, and Sammy Guevara, take on all 3 members of Jurassic Express. The babyfaces run absolutely wild to start this match off, and it's quite clear that this is not going to be a slow and methodical one. I mean, we're barely a minute or 2 into the match, and Luchasaurus is throwing Marco Stunt outside of the ring onto Santana and Ortiz, who catch him and throw him into Jungle Boy, and it's just all kicking off and there's bodies lying everywhere. But then, it does turn into a bit of a slow and methodical one, because the heels assume control and just slowly grind down Marco's Stunt and stop him from making the tag. Finally, Luchasaurus gets the hot tag and runs wild, throwing his big martial arts kicks at everybody, and then Stunt and Jungle Boy join in, and they all do what I can only describe as a Power Rangers move. Can anyone explain what they did here? So basically, they've got one of their opponents in the corner, they all throw their fists in the middle, and then shout something, probably something like, "Eye of the Falcon!" And then they all run off and then come back and do a big drop kick. And I was confused, but it looked like they were having fun. It all breaks down again, everybody takes each other out on the outside, which leaves Sammy Guevara and Jungle Boy one-on-one in the ring, except it's not quite one-on-one because Sammy Guevara has that sock, which is loaded with, I think it's a baseball, or is it coins? I can't quite remember which. The referee is distracted as well by all the commotion on the outside, so it looks like it's curtains for Jungle Boy, but here's Darby Allin at ringside to take the sock away from Sammy. He's livid, he turns back around, straight into a Hurricane Rana from Jungle Boy, 1, 2, 3, and the baby faces win. This gets a B+. It was a fun and entertaining match. It didn't take itself too seriously, but at the same time, it did have a purpose as well, building to Darby Allin versus Sammy Guevara at Revolution on Saturday. Next up, you'll never guess what, more bloody tag team action. God. We did have a 30-minute singles match to start the show, so I can kind of see where this is coming from. This time, it's the Butcher and the Blade, accompanied of course by the Bunny, taking on Trent and Chuck Taylor, the best friends, and Orange Cassidy's there as well. This one has a slower and more normal start than the previous match. It's not as wacky as the 6-man we've just seen, and it's more formulaic, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad thing. I think we need to come down a little bit after all the antics of the previous bout. The best friends take control, even though they're not as vicious and strong as the Butcher and Blade. They are better at teamwork and friendship, and that's why they take control in the match, and I'm there for it. I love it. It's such a good message. They go for the hug, but the Butcher's on the outside. He yanks Trent out of the ring and just chops his chest off, and we don't get to see the hug, and that's very sad indeed. Later on, they all take each other out outside the ring. Now, remember when I said that this match wasn't as silly as the previous one? Well, okay, so the Bunny and Orange Cassidy get in the ring because everyone else is lying down on the outside, and this is a face-off for the ages, this. In fairness, they do it really, really well. It is a good funny moment on the show. The Bunny steals Orange Cassidy's sunglasses. You do not do that. How dare you do that? Then she goes for a low blow. Orange Cassidy catches the boot and then steals her bunny ears, and it's like, which one's more offensive, stealing a rabbit's bunny ears or the... He then hits a suicide dive when the referee's back's turned and just wipes out the Butcher on the outside. Back in the ring, the Blade is isolated and the best friends hit the strong zero double stomp combination, and that's enough to pick up a big victory for those boys. Well done, best friends. Good job on being best friends. Next up, 4-way action in the women's division as Hikaru Shida takes on Shanna, Yuka Sakazaki, and Big Swole. Yuka's entrance music obviously has everybody fired up, and she dares to be happy towards the start of this match, so the other three just beat her down, which is really, it's just not on. You can't beat down someone like Yuka. Riho shoved her down, didn't she, at Fyter Fest? Why did Riho shove down Yuka Sakazaki at Fyter Fest and then go on to be a big babyface champion? We still want answers, AEW. There was a nice little exchange partway through this match of like, oh, I've got to roll up 1, 2, and then someone else comes in and takes their legs, and now they've got to roll up on them. It was one of those nice little moments that you only really get done in a 4-way match, and only if everybody can be trusted to time it right. And thankfully, everybody's timing was on point. It all spills to the outside and gets quite intense. Hikaru Shida sets up that chair on the outside and goes for her signature running, jumping knee strike. Big Swole just boots her out of the air. But Big Swole doesn't take control because here's Shanna with a suicide dive to take her out as well. At certain points, this match was quite frantic. And now it comes to the part of the match where they all start hitting their signature moves on each other. So Big Swole hits the Dirty Dancing. After a bit of a struggle, it took her and Shanna a little while to set up the whole ripcord element of that move, but it wasn't too big a blemish on the match. Hikaru Shida comes in, knee strike to Big Swole, but here comes Yuka, a big splash from the top rope to try and steal the pinfall. 1, 2, Shida's having none of that and just scoops her into the air. Shida slams Yuka Sakazaki onto Big Swole, who's now holding her gut, writhing around, and that leaves her wide open to a big knee strike from Hikaru Shida. 1, 2, 3, and Shida picks up the victory. This gets a B grade. I think they were aiming higher. I think this was quite an ambitious match, and they would have hoped that it would have, you know, maybe impressed a little bit more than it did, for me personally anyway. But yeah, I think that certain things were really good in this match, and certain things were a bit off. The biggest one for me is the decision. I'm really surprised that Hikaru Shida won, but I'm even more surprised that it was Big Swole who took the pinfall, because I thought she was going to win this match, especially with her interaction with Nyla Rose recently. But it was still a good match. I don't want to take away from that too much, and that turned out to be the last match on the show, but we were far from done. So next up, we get a little very short Dark Order video package, which I think I should still mention, even though it was short, too short for a grade probably. They just say that they're going to face SCU at Revolution, and that Christopher Daniels will learn that he is obsolete. Nah. Next up, we go to a pre-recorded sit-down interview with JR, and on one side he's got the Young Bucks, and the other side he's got Kenny Omega and Hangman Page, the tag team champions. And once again, Hangman Page is absolutely superb in this one. I feel bad for him. I'll just say that before I talk about what was said, because I think he's meant to be the heel in this, but I think that he's the one deserving of sympathy. I don't know, I feel like the Bucks are being sort of dicks. I guess it's open to interpretation, and it's one of those feuds where you pick whoever you feel for the most, I guess. And for me, that is definitely Hangman Page. I mean, the Young Bucks come across as the most condescending guys here. Matt's like, yeah, you know what, Jim? I'm really surprised. I'm really surprised that they won those belts before we did. And I'm just like, wow. Hangman Page is like, good, I'm glad you're surprised. He's necking his ring. I'm like, yes, go on, Hangman. And to be fair, everyone's performance in this was spot on, including Jim Ross as well. JR says at one point, you know what, Bucks, I still think you're the best tag team in the world, so why haven't you won these belts yet? And the Bucks are talking as if it's a foregone conclusion that they're going to win the belts. Even Kenny Omega, Hangman's partner, sits next to him and says, you know what? It's an honor to have learned from these guys, and when we step into the ring in a tag team match, we try and replicate, you know, their level of success and performance. And I'm just like, hang on, you're the tag team champions. I can totally see why Hangman is ready to erupt at any moment. JR asks Hangman why he's so uncomfortable at the moment, as if it wasn't totally obvious, and Hangman denies it because he doesn't want to admit that. Matt Jackson then brings up the fact that Paige is drinking in the interview, and that all gets a bit uncomfortable, and then Matt goes, you know what, it's fine. We're going to have this match, we'll shake hands after we win, he seems to imply, and then he says, we will all still be elite. And this really gets to Hangman, and he says, were you not listening to me months ago? I wanted out of the elite back then. And this for me is where the Young Bucks really crossed the line. That has clearly really offended them, that someone doesn't want to be elite, you know, I mean, it does fit their characters, I suppose. They really do not enjoy this at all. Matt's like, what, after everything we've done for you, after we brought you into the Bullet Club, made you a star. Nick says that before they got their hands on him, Hangman was just a jobber in ROH. And Paige leaves, because good for him, you know, yeah. Why would you not leave after someone said that? This segment was amazing. I really want Hangman to kick the piss out of the Young Bucks now. And Kenny as well, if he doesn't shape up and back his teammate. It gets an A grade. I'm fully invested, as you can probably tell. And I think the match should be a really good one as well. And finally, the wiggity weigh-in for the AEW World Championship match at Revolution. Jon Moxley on one side and Chris Jericho on the other. We have a legendary ring announcer for this one, Gary Michael Capetta, who, in fairness, does not seem too clued up on what's going on and is quite clearly reading from a script, but that's okay. He doesn't totally flub anything. It's just a bit. You can tell that it's someone who's not in tune with the current product. Moxley comes through the crowd, fair enough. Jericho's entrance is so funny. Him and the Inner Circle come out doing the Gracie family thing, like the whole train down to the ring with their arms on the shoulders of the man in front, in matching tracksuits as well. It's so pretentious and so brilliant. Y2J cuts off the ring announcer, cuts off poor Gary and says, listen here, you weird little man. Weird little man. It's just disrespectful. He also says, you know what? Yeah, you're a legend of ring announcing, but you clearly don't know what you're doing, and that's probably why WCW went out of business. Ooh. I don't think it's Gary's fault that WCW went out of business. There are a lot of different contributing factors to that whole mess. Jericho wants to go last, so Moxley gets on the scales first, and he weighs in at 234 pounds. Lovely stuff. It's Jericho's turn, and he stalls and stalls and stalls. He takes off his sunglasses, then he takes off his scarf, then he's got other things. He's taking so long. He's taking so long, and of course the crowd start to boo him, and Jericho cuts a promo on the crowd. He says, you know, Kansas City is a piece of crap, and also, I'll tell you what, Aaron Mahone is a piece of crap too. And I, like many people watching, was like, who's Aaron Mahone? Is that some sort of Kansas City legend that I've never heard of? No, I think in hindsight that Jericho was trying to say that Kansas City Chiefs Super Bowl winning quarterback, MVP, athlete extraordinaire Patrick Mahomes is a piece of crap, but got it totally wrong. But it's okay, because the crowd sort of got what he meant and booed him anyway. And it sort of fits his character. It sort of works that Jericho wouldn't know the name of the Super Bowl winning quarterback from this year. Maybe. Am I being too kind here? Quite possibly. Jericho continues to stall, the heat's getting bigger and bigger now, and he gets in Moxley's face, and Moxley's having absolutely none of it today, just headbutts Jericho. Jericho is immediately bleeding all over the ring. The Inner Circle jump on Moxley and start to beat him down, so here comes Dustin Rhodes to take out Jake Hager once again. He clotheslines him, they both fly over the top rope, they head to the back, they head to the concourse and have a brawl near the dipping dots, which JR is beside himself to see. And unfortunately, Hager turns the tide of the brawl, low blows Dustin and slams him into the dipping dots again and again and again. Not the ice cream itself, just the hard side of the stand. Vicious. Back to ringside now, and here comes Darby Allin to try and take out Sammy Guevara, but exactly the opposite happens. Sammy's seen him coming, cuts him off, grabs his skateboard and breaks it over Darby Allin's head. Everybody's down now except for Moxley and Jericho, so they go at it again. Moxley goes for the paradigm shift, but someone, I think it's Santana, they're all in matching tracksuits, it's hard to tell, low blows Moxley from behind. Jericho hits the Judas Effect back elbow and hits a paradigm shift of his own, stealing Moxley's finisher, holding down L1 and L2, or was it R1 and L1, depends what game you're playing, and hits a paradigm shift onto the weights, onto the scales in the middle of the ring. And that's the end of the show, with Jericho standing tall with his title, but very bloody faced. But in fairness, with Moxley laid out before him. This segment gets an A-. Felt a little bit disjointed and weird at times, and there was a lot of stalling, but I think by the end, once the brawl kicked off, it was all very exciting indeed. Overall, I'm going to give this week's edition of AEW Dynamite an A- grade. Not quite on the same very high level that the past 2 weeks have been, but on the other hand, another very consistent show at a very high level still from AEW. I mean, I'm really excited heading into Revolution. I think it's going to be an excellent show, and even if it's not, the build and the stories they've made should help carry it through, even if they have a bit of an off day, but I'm pretty confident it's going to be a good show, to be fair. Yeah, what do you think? Personally, for me, I think that Dynamite is comfortably the best weekly wrestling show on TV at the minute. But let me know what you think down below, and I'll see you soon. Thanks very much for watching, and let us know what you think in the comments section down below. You can follow Cultaholic on Twitter at Cultaholic and on Facebook at facebook.com/Cultaholic. If you enjoy what we do, then please do check out our Patreon, patreon.com/Cultaholic, where you can pledge. And don't forget, of course, most importantly of all, to hit subscribe and to join us.